What is up, guys? In the last video I mentioned that we will be looking at the guard statement, but I'm actually going to postpone that because there's a lot of stuff we need to learn before we use that, such as the for in, the while, the break, and the continue keywords. So that's what we're going to be covering in this video. And to get started, we're going to be looking at the for loop. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and create a list of food, and it's going to be an array, which I will also cover in the next video, and it's going to consist of apples, milk, eggs, and sugar. So it just contains those 4 strings. Now let's pretend we want to print all of these to the console. For that, we can go ahead and type in for item, and this can actually be any keyword. It can be for food, it can be for any name you want to give it. So we can actually go ahead and type in for food in food list. We're going to go ahead and print the food. So when we run the program, it's going to iterate through this list and print each one of them at each location. And the cool thing about this is that you can make simple tests, such as if food is equal to apples, print we found apples in the list. So now we made a feature that checks whether there's a certain element in the list. And if we remove the apples, it's not going to print anything because there were no apples in the list. So the for in loop can be very powerful in the sense that we can check for a lot of features. But there's also another way to make it more specific. So here I'm going to go ahead and show you something else we can do. And we're going to create a variable called numbers, and that's going to equal a range of numbers from 1 to 10. And instead of writing an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way to 10, we can use 3 dots and type in 1 to 10 just like that. And just to show you what that does, we're going to go ahead and print the numbers. And when we print it to the console, it's actually going to print exactly the same thing. I don't know why I expected that to be different. So actually, if we go ahead and type in for number in numbers and then print the number, you're going to notice it's going to print every number between 1 and 10. But what I actually wanted to show you here is the where keyword. And this allows us to be a bit more specific in the beginning part of the statement. So here we can type in for number in numbers where number modulus 2 is equal to 0. And it's only going to print where this condition is true, which means if the number is divisible by 2, it will print the number. If it's not divisible by 2, it will not print the number. So it's pretty cool that you can add a control flow statement here to simplify your for in statements. So as a result, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 printed to the console. And this is actually the exact equivalent to typing if number 2 is equal to 0, or modulus 2 is equal to 0, then we can print the number. So it just looks a bit more clean because we can keep it on one line. But up next, we're going to be talking about the while loop. And the while loop is just like the for loop, except this is used for unknown iterations, which means it can be infinite, it can be 2. It's just when you do not know how many items you have to loop through. So the first thing we're going to do is create 2 variables. One's going to be called limit, and that's going to be set to 0. And we're going to create one that's called I, and that's going to be set to 0 as well. And as you may have noticed, I managed to create 2 variables on one line, and that's just by using this simple comma syntax, which is pretty cool. So just keep that in mind. You can save some space by doing this. And let's continue with the while loop. So the first thing we need to do in a while loop is provide a condition. So while the limit is less than 5, we want to loop through this sequence of statements. For example, we're going to print the number in the limit, and each time we iterate through this, we're going to increase the limit by 1. So when we output this to the console, we will get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it will exit out of the loop as soon as it finds out that this is false. So it's actually very important that you provide a way to exit out of the loop so you don't print this a billion times. And now there's a very slight variation, which is the repeat while loop. So to do this, we just type in repeat, and in here we can go ahead and type in print hello followed by I. And each time we go through this repeat block, we're going to increment I plus 1. And then we need to also provide the condition while I is less than 5. So let's go ahead and run this code. So as you can see, it says hello 0, hello 1, hello 2, hello 3, hello 4, and it looks exactly the same as the previous statement. And there's only one difference. Repeat is guaranteed to run the code at least once, while the while loop is not guaranteed to run it the first time. For example, if we go ahead and type in I is less than 0, this is going to evaluate to false immediately, which means in theory we shouldn't have anything printed to the console. But since we used the repeat keyword, it's going to print it immediately, and then it's going to see that it's false and exit out of the loop. If we did this the other way around, I can actually just recreate this, take this and insert it inside here. You will see that we will have nothing printed because this is false immediately, which means all of this is skipped. So that's just another reason to use the repeat while loop. Now, the last thing we're going to be going over in this video is the break and the continue keyword. So first we're going to go ahead and check while the limit is less than 10, and then we need to create a block, of course. We're first going to increase the limit by 1. It's very important that we do not forget this, or else our program will probably crash due to how many lines it tries to print at the same time. So we will increase the limit plus 1, and if the limit is equal to 3, we're going to print we skip the code below this line. And the reason I wrote that is because we will be using this continue keyword. And what the continue keyword does is prematurely end the current iteration of the loop, which means if we have some code down here, for example, it's going to completely skip that, because once we reach the continue keyword, it tells the program to go all the way back up to the top and continue from there. But let's go ahead and add a print statement at the bottom so we can see this in action. So we'll type in loop / and insert the limits. So when we run the program, it's going to say loop 1, loop 2. It's going to trigger the if statement, and it's going to continue and skip this part down here. And then it's going to continue on iteration number 4. So as you can see, loop 1, loop 2, we skip the code below this line, and loop number 4, loop number 5. So in a nutshell, that's actually all the continue keyword does. And the next keyword, which goes hand in hand with the continue keyword, is the break keyword. So here we can type in else if limit is equal to 6, we're going to print we break out of the loop. And then we're going to include the break keyword. And what the break keyword does is prematurely end the loop, which means once we reach this keyword, it's going to say it doesn't really matter what's inside here. It's going to skip the rest, and it's going to exit out of this while loop. So if we run the program, we're only going to get to iteration number 6. Because as soon as we reach number 6, it prints that we're going to break out of the loop, and then it breaks out of the loop. That's why we only get to line number 6. But with that being said, guys, that's actually all I wanted to show you in this video. Of course, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. I will see you guys in the next video.